Welcome back, everybody. So the other day I was talking to somebody about different rigs for fishing, and we were talking about the Alabama rig and my goal of trying to catch two fish on one cast. And I had brought up the donkey rig, and the person I was talking to had like no idea what I was talking about. And in all honesty, I don't see many people really throw it, so I figured why not go ahead and do a video on how to rig the donkey rig or how to set it up and show people how it works if you've never heard of it or never used it before. So the donkey rig or the double fluke rig, whatever you call it, is essentially just two lines that each have a fluke. I mean, you can use a Senko. I've actually used it a lot for white bass. When there's a white bass run, you have the opportunity to just put down two lures down there, potentially at different depths, and you have the opportunity to kind of key on what the fish are actually feeding on. So we'll go ahead and show you kind of how I rig mine. There's a traditional way, and then I do something a little bit different that I haven't really seen people really ever use. So we'll get into that. But first off, for the most part, you do need some line. You need swivels. We'll get into the different types of swivels and whatever bait you got, and then whatever kind of hooks you want to use, whether they're worm hooks, EWGs, what have you. First thing you're going to want to do is cut off about 2 pieces of line. Now this line is going to go to your hooks. Typically I pick line that's a little bit lighter than what my main line is. And the reason I do that is just because if you end up getting one hooked onto something, snag somewhere, you have the opportunity to just break off that one hook versus breaking off your main line. And I'd much rather lose one than, 2 baits and a whole rig. So your first line you're going to want somewhere about 14 inches. You can go up to 18, but the longer line you get, the more difficult it becomes to cast and a little bit less manageable. So we'll do about 16 right now. And then obviously it's going to shorten up once we start tying knots. Whatever knot that you tie, you just have to be comfortable with it because there's a lot of knots in this whole rig. So you have to be very comfortable with whatever you're tying. So there's our first one, and we'll cut off a second one that's a little bit shorter. All right, so now we've got our 2 lines. One's 4 to 5 inches longer than the other one, and now we'll just grab a couple swivels and tie that to each end of our line. Go ahead and do that real quick. All right, got that tied on, and now on the end of both of those, we will just go ahead and tie whatever hook you like to throw with your flukes or whatever you're using. I've just got some EWGs. All right, so we got everything tied up. Now what you're going to want to do next is take your main line, and I guess for this demonstration we just have our braid, which is typically what I would probably throw with this, to be honest. You're going to go ahead and slide the shorter line, the swivel, right on through there. And you're not going to tie it at all. You're just going to put it on there and just leave her be. Then with the longer one, you will actually go ahead and tie your main line to that swivel. So we'll go ahead and do that real quick. So this is kind of what it looks like. You get a little bit of a T, and again, this is attached to that shorter line, and then longer one behind it. This shorter one allows it to kind of move a little bit. It doesn't give fish as much leverage when they're fighting to pull off or anything else like that. And then you just go ahead and put on your flukes or whatever, and when you're twitching them through the water, it just looks like 2 bait fish that are kind of moving through. So we'll go ahead and throw on our flukes to kind of show exactly what it looks like at the end. So that is what she looks like. And again, you just have these 2 flukes that, because one's shorter, they just end up kind of walking through the water. Phenomenal bait for when you have a bunch of schooling bait fish. Similar to like what an Alabama rig, but obviously this is a little bit more finessey. So that is that. The only thing that I do a little bit differently with mine, just because I'm not a huge fan of the swivel that kind of pulls on mainline. I've never really had it break, but I guess that would be the worry, is that you have this this swivel that's pulling on this knot at an odd angle on top of potentially having pressure from like fish and whatnot. So I've never really been a huge fan of that. So what I've done with a lot of mine, and you lose a little bit less equipment, is actually to get a crane swivel. This is basically the exact same thing, just made into one swivel. You can buy them, I assume, on Amazon, a lot of places. I use them a lot for catfishing, so I just have them. But you would do exactly the same thing. You would have main line, your short line with your fluke or whatever you're using, and then your longer one out the back. And everything basically works exactly the same. So that's one thing I do a little bit different, because it's just one less component that I have to have. And if I lose everything, it's one less swivel that I'm losing. So that's one little tip that I do a little bit differently. And again, with this, there's so much nuance that you can have. You can have multiple baits for this. You can have different colored flukes to try and figure out what fish are keying in on. Again, I use this a ton for white bass. And I'll have some fluke style bait on top that's kind of a little bit, able to move around a little bit more. And then I'll have potentially, a crankbait, a jig, a hair jig, something of that sort, on bottom. And you are able to get, doubles with that. I've seen plenty of people catch crappie like that. So if it's legal in your state, by all means, I think it's a great rig. But if you guys have never heard of the donkey rig or the double fluke rig, by all means, drop that in the comment section below. If there's other cool rigs that maybe people haven't heard of, I haven't heard of, most certainly drop those down in the comment section below. Sometimes it's difficult to find all of the different information on the internet, and there are just so many rigs for fishing, it's hard to keep track of them all. But, as always, if you guys like the video, if you wouldn't mind liking, and if you want to see more videos like it, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, that'd be greatly appreciated also. Till the next one.